Once upon a time, there was a man who had worked his whole life but felt he had nothing to show for it. Every season he planted, and every season he waited, but his patience was always running out just before the harvest came. And that was the wound that followed him. He believed his time was gone, even while life was still quietly preparing something for him. He lived in a small, sun-worn village where the soil was dry and the sky rarely promised rain. The fields stretched wide and brown, and every farmer waited with the same tired hope. But this man, Arun, had grown weary of waiting. His hands were rough from years of labor, his back bent, and his heart tired of believing in what he could not yet see. Each morning, he walked to his field with a small seed bag slung over his shoulder. He whispered to himself, "Maybe this year will be different." And yet, by the time the wind turned cold, disappointment always found its way back to him. One year, after another season of drought, Arun nearly gave up. He stood in the middle of his half-grown field, staring at the earth that refused to bloom. The other farmers had stopped coming by. Even his friends had told him, "Arun, maybe it's time to leave this land. Nothing grows here anymore." But there was one thing they didn't know. He had nothing else. This land was his story, his hope, his last chance to feel that all his waiting had meant something. Still, that evening, as the sun fell behind the trees, he knelt down and whispered, "I've waited so long, but maybe waiting was my mistake." The next morning, while walking home from the well, he saw an old woman sitting by the path. Her face was lined with years, her clothes simple, her hands steady as she sorted grains in a small wooden bowl. He paused. "Mother, how long have you been sitting there?" She smiled. "Long enough to see how the sun changes when you stop rushing it." He frowned. "But I've been patient. I've waited and waited, and still, nothing comes." She looked at him with soft eyes and said gently, "Patience isn't just waiting, son. It's trusting while you wait." Then she poured the grains into his palm and whispered, "Some seeds take longer because they're growing roots where no one can see." And before he could ask what she meant, she stood and walked away down the dusty path. That night, her words echoed in his mind. Some seeds grow roots first. He couldn't sleep. He thought of all the times he had walked away from his crops too soon, how often he had doubted just before something was about to change. He realized the truth. He had been patient in days, not in faith. So the next morning, for the first time, he went back to his land, not to check it, not to curse it, but simply to care for it. He touched the soil with quiet hands. He watered it. He stayed. Days passed, then weeks, and one dawn, after the longest dry season, he saw it, the faintest green breaking through the brown earth. He knelt beside it, trembling. It was small, fragile, but alive. He didn't shout. He didn't run. He just smiled and whispered, "So you were growing all along." From that day, he began to live differently. He woke up before sunrise, not to demand progress, but to greet it. He stopped comparing his field to others. He learned to measure time not by how quickly something grew, but by how deeply it took root. As months turned, the rain came, gently, as if it had been waiting for him too. The green spread across his field, soft and slow. And for the first time in years, the harvest was full. But more than that, he was full of peace, of stillness, of quiet faith. He understood now. Patience isn't weakness. It's strength, the kind that trusts the unseen and endures the silence. Sometimes life delays what you're asking for, not to deny you, but to deepen you. And maybe you, listening now, have something you've been waiting for too. A dream, a healing, a sign that your effort matters. Maybe it hasn't come yet. Maybe the waiting hurts. But remember Arun's field. Sometimes, what looks empty is only building its roots. Years later, people would pass by his land and call it blessed. But if you had asked Arun, he would only smile and say, "It wasn't the land that changed. It was me, when I learned to wait without losing heart." He never saw that old woman again. But every time he saw the first sprout of green, he whispered her words to the wind. Some seeds take longer because they're growing roots where no one can see. If this story found you at the right time, stay with it a little longer. And if it left a spark inside you, share that spark forward to someone you love who is still waiting for their own harvest. Subscribe to Tales of Motivation, where old wisdom still breathes.